The next item of business is an urgent question, and I call Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will clarify its position regarding whether local authorities will be given powers to introduce a visitor levy on a flat charge basis as an alternative to a percentage.
Minister Ivan McKee.
The existing legislation enables councils to introduce a levy based on a percentage of the cost of overnight accommodation, and there is no barrier to local authorities who wish to proceed on this basis from doing so, and there is already flexibility within the system to tailor the charge to local circumstances. There are some councils who would like the option to instead apply a different basis of charge, and we have no in principle objection to having that added layer of flexibility, so we are giving the matter active consideration. A change of this nature would require an amendment to primary legislation, and as such would be appropriate, subject to appropriate consultation, parliamentary scrutiny and identification of an appropriate legislative vehicle, all of which of course would take time to work through.
Murdo Fraser.
Well, I thank the Minister for his response, but this is an absolute shambles from this government. On Friday, Ivan McKee wrote to the Economy and Fair Work Committee of this Parliament and said this: "We are now actively extending powers to local authorities, including the option to introduce a single flat rate or tiered rate model alongside the existing percentage-based approach." That's entirely clear. Presiding Officer, was warmly welcomed by the Scottish Conservatives, who have been campaigning on this issue for many months, and indeed warmly welcomed by industry representatives. But yesterday, we had a U-turn on the U-turn, because yesterday afternoon, we found out in another letter from Mr McKee that he'd missed out a vital word, it seems, from his original communication, and that word was considering. So, can we at last get some clarity on what exactly is going to change, and crucially, when is it going to change, given that we have local authorities presently actively consulting on a visitor levy, and they don't even know what powers they're going to have and when? Minister.
Well, of course, as Murdo Fraser fine well knows, there was an error in that letter, and it wasn't consistent. No, it's the reality of it. And it wasn't, of course, consistent with the letter that had been sent.
Let's hear one another.
The letter that had been sent to industry and other stakeholders at the same time. So our position is that we absolutely recognise that, given there is a request for more flexibility from the sector and indeed from some local authorities, we've long recognised that. We are minded to bring forward changes to enable that to take place, but of course we need to identify a suitable legislative vehicle to enable that to happen. And the member will be as well aware as anyone else that the legislative programme in the run-up to next March is extremely busy, and finding a slot for this is very difficult. But
Let's
we have
committed
to consider taking that forward should we be in government as early in the next session. But I think it's also important to recognise that Murdo Fraser and the Conservatives making a lot of noise about this, but when this bill went through, none of them brought forward any amendments or proposals that would have allowed that flexibility for local authorities, for them now to be complaining about it when they had the option to do so. They didn't bring forward that option as something that they should reflect on.
Murdo Fraser.
Well, Presiding Officer, the Minister says it was an error. It took him 3 days to notice the error and correct it. In the meantime, there was press coverage at the weekend saying the government had changed its mind, and no correction from the Scottish Government at the time. But councils across Scotland are currently actively considering the introduction of a visitor levy. Some have gone, like Edinburgh, for example, are quite far down that track. Others have consulted and are still to take a decision. Others are currently still consulting with open consultations. None can take a final decision on what they're going to do if they don't know when they're going to be given these powers, or if at all. So would he agree with me that what we now need is a moratorium on any councils introducing a visitor levy until this shambles is sorted out?
Minister.
I know that Murdo Fraser and the Conservative benches find this something that they're getting very excited about, but the reality is, if you talk to the sector or you talk to local authorities, it's exactly what we've done, and that's why we're making this change.
Minister, if I might just stop you a second. I have several requests for questions. I will not be able to take any more if we have constant interruptions. Please continue.
The legislation that's in front of us at the moment, as I've made very clear, allows authorities like Edinburgh that want to proceed on a percentage basis to continue to do so. The legislation also allows considerable flexibility for local authorities to bring forward other proposals already. The changes we are looking to do is to enable a tiered flat rate system to be brought in addition to the existing system. So that's our clear position. We've been very clear for quite a period of time that we are very interested to listen to the sector and to introduce that flexibility and indeed enable local authorities to do so as well. And this is something that we are taking forward when a legislative vehicle allows us to do so.
Bill Kidd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Minister, the visitor levy is a local tax, so it's appropriate that local authorities can set a rate that meets the needs of their area and their residents. Can the Minister please confirm that any local authority who wishes to bring forward a levy under the system would be supported to do so?
Minister.
That's absolutely indeed the case. The visitor levy is a local tax. It's right that local authorities are empowered to set a rate that reflects the needs and priorities of their area and its residents. And as I can confirm again, any local authority wishing to bring forward a visitor levy under the existing system will be fully supported to do so. The Scottish Government, through Visit Scotland, has published statutory guidance and is working closely with local authorities to ensure that the tools and support required to design and implement a levy that works for their communities. And we are committed to ensuring that the introduction of any visitor levy is locally driven, transparent and delivers real benefits for residents and visitors alike.
Rachel Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. May I draw members to my register of interests? Presiding Officer, this is an embarrassing omni-shambles by the SNP. They're once again punishing businesses who've already been punished by them not passing on business rates relief, and now we see them delivering a botched visitor levy scheme. My colleague Murdo Ferris is absolutely right. Minister, will you admit that you got it wrong, that it is unworkable and that you will call a moratorium on this ridiculous scheme?
Always through the chair, please, Minister.
Yeah, I mean, the legislation that's in place, which of course was passed by this Parliament, and I'll remind the members on the Conservative bench again, they did not, nobody brought forward an amendment at that point in time to offer the flexibility that we are now proposing to offer, and the industry and local authorities are now calling for. So I need to answer the question as to why they didn't think it was such a good idea at the time to make this change that we are now considering
point of order,
making.
Minister, point of order, Miles Briggs.
So during the passage of that bill, I brought forward two amendments, SP22 and SP26, to bring forward a package of amendments to allow local authorities to set a flat rate to the visitor levy. I believe the Minister is misinforming Parliament.
Thank you. While that is not a debating point, Mr Briggs, Minister.
To the contrary, Presiding Officer, Miles Briggs has been very clear. He brought forward an amendment to change the basis of charge from percentage to flat rate and to not allow a percentage rate, or nor indeed to allow a tiered flat rate, which is what the industry is largely calling for now. What we are talking about is allowing all those options to be available to allow that flexibility. So my point remains, at no point did anyone bring forward an amendment that allowed the flexibility of all of those options to be allowed to be implemented.
Daniel Johnson.
The move from the government to simplify this scheme is welcome. However, the Minister has stated that the government's position has been clear for a period of time. Unfortunately, that period of time is just a matter of days, and local authorities are proceeding to implement within the coming weeks. So can I just ask for the following points of clarification? The legislative change that he sets out will be in addition to the existing legislation, therefore current schemes will be able to proceed. Secondly, that this will be legislative change in the coming parliamentary session. Could you clarify that remark? But there was also some discussion of regulatory change through secondary legislation. Is that now ruled out?
Minister.
I thank Daniel Johnson for his question. In terms of the regulatory change, that's a separate issue. It's in relation to the percentage scheme, and it's to put in place regulations that allow that to be taken forward. And those are listed out in the response I sent back to the committee. But I'm very happy, myself and officials, to engage further with Daniel Johnson to go through more details of that, which can be quite a complicated technical area. With regards to current schemes, yes, absolutely. They can, of course, continue and been very clear about that in Edinburgh, or indeed anyone else that's bringing forward a proposed scheme on the percentage basis, is absolutely able to continue to do that to the current timescales. What we are proposing is to make changes that broaden out the scope so that the tiered flat rate scheme can also be introduced. And with regards to the timing of that, as I've made clear, we are looking for a legislative vehicle that allows that. He'll be very well aware of the number of bills that are finding their way through Parliament over the coming weeks and months. Indeed, we're staying very late tonight to take a stage 3 through. So finding the slot for that is indeed the challenge. We would like to do that earlier, but realistically, I think that will happen after May next year.
Liam MacArthur.
Thank you. I'm afraid the shambles has created greater uncertainty for local authorities. Perhaps no surprise therefore that Orkney Islands Council, following the same approach as Shetland Islands Council last week, today voted not to take forward a visitor levy, and I understand Western Isles Council have similarly paused their plans as well. In Orkney, the local tourism sector has put forward proposals for a point of entry levy, and I wonder whether the Minister might be able to update Parliament on when the government plans to take a view on such a levy.
Minister.
Well, first of all, in terms of the legislation, all we are doing is responding to asks from industry and local authorities to give them more flexibility on the type of visitor levy they want to take forward. So I think that's very clear. We have indicated over a period of time that we would seek ways of bringing forward more flexibility if that is what industry and local authorities want. And I think that that's absolutely the right thing to do. It's government listening to industry and to local authorities and giving them more flexibility, not stopping them doing anything that they're already empowered to do. With regards to the specific point that is raised by the member, if he's talking about a levy that is charged when someone enters a local authority area, then that has got some other specific challenges around about it. It's not something we are actively pursuing at the moment, but I'm very keen to have conversations with members and others that have proposals in that space so we can understand more around the specifics of what they're talking about.
It's extremely important that I protect time for next item of business, so if members can be concise, that would be helpful. I call Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, the Minister has said that he is considering taking measures to allow the flaw in the bill to be changed, to allow local authorities to choose a flat rate tax should they so wish. But is it not the case, as I've heard, that the Minister has in fact already taken steps to try, by way of lodging an amendment to the housing bill, to have this measure dealt with in that bill, but that, not surprisingly perhaps, Presiding Officer, to those of us who have studied the housing bill, that request was actually declared incompetent by yourself? And if that is the case, why has this not been explained to the House in the interests of transparency? And moreover, surely tourism is important enough to merit time for amendment by way of primary legislation, which surely must be done.
Minister.
Well, I just again reflect on the fact that this chamber passed this legislation as it was, and again reiterate no one brought forward any amendments at that point to broaden out the basis of charge. As I've said already, I've been quite clear, we are seeking a legislative vehicle to enable this change to be taken forward. The member can make the point about how we do that, and I'm very open to suggestions how we do that, but the whole chamber is aware of the situation with regards to legislative challenges over the next coming weeks and months. But as I've said, I've been quite clear, we are actively exploring mechanisms whereby we can deliver that change, responding, this government, listening to what industry and local authorities have asked for and delivering what they want to see.
Stephen Kerr.
The Minister can dead bat these questions all the day long if he wishes, and he can do that because he's very capable of that. But the reality is that Murdo Fraser is right. This is a complete shambles, and the whole reason we're having an urgent question is because he issued 2 contradictory letters within the space of 4 days. Now, how on earth does that happen in a government office, the office of the Minister? So I think he should take the time and explain to this chamber how such contradictory statements were issued in his name. Who precisely proofread those letters? Who proofread those letters? And who signed off those letters? Because if it's the Minister, then I'm afraid the charge of incompetence rests in front of him.
Minister.
I thank the member for his question. I mean, it's already explained. Unfortunately, there was a typographical error in one of those letters that was sent out, and that was reissued in order to give clarification. But if the Conservative bench are getting so excited about one typographical error and one misplaced word, then it's a shame they've not got more important things to worry about. I've been very, very clear.
Let's hear one
anyone
another.
That's engaged with me and the industry should listen to the industry and their perspective on this. They are very comfortable that we are seeking to make this change. We listen to them, we listen to local authorities, and as I said, the legislation that was passed, we recognise that some additional flexibility within that by making this change is important, and that is why we are taking it forward at this time.
Thank you. That concludes the urgent question. The next item of business is consideration of business motion 19014 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, setting out a timetable for the Stage 3 consideration of the Housing Scotland Bill. I have a point of order from Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, I seek your guidance, please. A moment ago, I asked the Minister if it was the case that instead of attempts being made in future to tackle the problem with the legislation, that it has been brought to my attention that possibly there may already have been steps, namely by attempts to amend the housing bill with an amendment which would have altered the provision in the visitor levy legislation. Can you share with the Chamber the information about whether such a move was proposed, whether it was made, whether it was submitted, and if so, whether it was the case, Presiding Officer, that your judgment was that that amendment attempt was irrelevant? I think this is very important because if it was the case that the government did try to do this, it's clear that they think it must be done. And if they're now saying they can't do it because there's not enough time, although we're here for about 2/3 of a year, then what does it say about the importance of tourism to this government?
Thank you, Mr Ewing. I do not generally share information with regards to admissibility and selection decisions. So we will now move on to the next item of business.